A major victory for the organisation Undoing Tax Abuse, OUTA, and the SAA Pilots Association, as the High Court in Pretoria yesterday declared former SAA Chairperson Dudu Myeni a delinquent director in terms of the Companies Act. Now, that application was brought to the court by OUTA and the SAA Pilots Association. In her ruling, Judge Ronald Tolme said that Myeni's versions changed and that she could not answer crucial parts of the evidence against her. Myeni told the court she was being used as a scapegoat. Let's take a listen.
Being made a scapegoat around the losses that are being incurred by not signing this memorandum of understanding, I said, I no longer care what happens thereafter.
Well, for more on the story, we're joined now by OUTA's Chief Legal Officer, Advocate Stefanie Fick. Advocate Fick, thanks very much for your time this morning on the AM Report. So OUTA bringing this application around 2017, you'll correct me if I'm wrong, the wheels of justice turn slowly, but when they turn, oh boy.
Yes, they do turn. Yeah, we are delighted with the South African pilots, SAPA. We are really very delighted, and I think this is a win for civil society, for South Africans. Some good news during a very difficult time.
So take us through some of the issues that were raised by Judge Ronald Tolme in what was really a scathing judgment. In particular, she talked about the issues around the difficulty getting Dudu Myeni to actually appear in court. You'll remember, of course, that she claimed on several occasions that she was not able to afford to make the trip to be present for the hearing. And Judge Ronald Tolme saying pleading poverty was found to be distasteful as a professional woman who served as a director of several companies, describing her as one of the privileged few.
Yes, I think it boils down to, she states further in her judgment, we must remember that there are thousands of people expected to appear in court each and every day, that has to take more than one, public transport, more than one taxi to appear in a court. And it is expected of them to appear. Otherwise, there's consequences. So I think what it boils down to that, she was employed, she had an opportunity, and that she can't use that as an excuse. Although we must remember it's not necessarily expected. I mean, the fact that she didn't appear, there wasn't a warrant or anything. But I mean, one would expect someone to listen to the evidence in order to give, your legal representative proper facts and listen to what is said so that you can properly cross-examine. I think the judge also made reference to the fact that it was actually at the end a problem for her not being there because a lot of the versions wasn't tested and a proper version was never put to some of the witnesses.
So this is something that OUTA, along with the SAA Pilots Association, took to court, a litany of issues that eventually, you arrived at your decision to pursue this issue. Take us through some of the issues that made OUTA so passionate about pursuing this case against Dudu Myeni.
Well, let me start by saying I think we've just also, we are still feeling the result of state capture. We went through a very difficult period, and I think one of the main reasons is the fact that no one has been prosecuted for state capture, and SAA is an extremely important SOE. We can now see the result of what happens if an SOE is not properly looked after. I mean, people are going to lose their jobs. So that was one of the reasons, the fact that we are passionate about combating corruption and tax abuses. And, and we are extremely glad that we did it because, like I said, this is some good news and it's also a message that civil society can, hold people to account for their actions. It is a message that if you are the chairperson, if you are a board member, and specifically for a state-owned entity, that you need to be careful in terms of the Companies Act. You are expected, you have obligations, and you better look after our SOEs. Otherwise, there are consequences. Like we said, the wheels of justice are turning slowly, but we do have a lovely justice system and a beautiful constitution. And it's time that we use it.
And I suppose what touches so close to home, just for ordinary taxpayers as well, particularly when it comes to the issue of SAA, we know that the airline has received billions of rands worth of government guarantees over the years. That's money that may well have gone for service delivery.
That's correct. And although it's a burden to the taxpayer, it's a burden to each and every South African. We do not always realize what corruption does to society. Now, you may say that, I'm living somewhere, I don't even fly, I'm not one particularly, I don't like flying, but we don't have money. Our economy is struggling. What does that mean? No clean water for our communities. No more schools. I mean, we need more schools. We need more health services. We need more hospital. And because, an SOE like SAA is bailed out, there's less money in the fiscus. It's not only the taxpayers, each and every one of us. And communities that are, at the short end of the stick.
Yeah, absolutely. And I suppose the hope, for people who are watching, for people who have followed the state capture hearings from last year, we know what rampant corruption has done to the country's SOEs over the years. SAA is but one. There's Eskom, there's PRASA, to name just a few. The hope will be that this is the start of things to come when it comes to holding people accountable, getting them before the country's courts.
Yes, what you are saying, it is hope for us as South Africans that, there is some accountability and we can start rebuilding. We're faced with an enormous pandemic, with a health system that, there's health workers working extremely hard to make sure that each and every one of us is safe. But just imagine what we could have done with the billions that was lost due to state capture.
Yeah, it's heartbreaking. Thanks very much for your time this morning. That's Advocate Stefanie Fick, who is OUTA's Chief Legal Officer, as we continue to track the story around former SAA Chair Dudu Myeni.